It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
Let's talk about another big thing, and we kind of just hinted at it, tax planning. And this is, how do you pay less taxes without ending up like Al Capone and going to jail?
Yeah, so we already talked a little bit about how you can structure your portfolio in a really tax-efficient way, and you can do that sort of thing. But we think there's even an additional thing you can look at in terms of how you think about what am I going to pay on a year-over-year basis, and not just on a year-over-year basis, but what am I going to pay over my entire lifetime from a tax bill standpoint?
Now, Bo, you say this one. So I don't, even though I'm the CPA on staff here, I'm not the only CPA on staff, but I'm one of them.
You used to be, but you're not anymore.
I'm one of several now. What do we have, 3 on staff
We
now?
have 3 CPAs on staff.
So here's the thing I think is interesting. You say this, and I'm always like, I love it when Bo shares that in client meetings. Tell them what your outlook on tax and what you learned in school about taxes.
Yeah, so taxes, we know that there are only 2 things that are certain, death and taxes. So it's sort of a necessary evil, but that doesn't mean that you can't be proactive, because keep in mind, tax evasion is illegal. It will get you Al Capone. It will get you put in jail. Tax avoidance is highly encouraged.
I don't know if the IRS is encouraging it, but they don't prosecute you for it.
They literally have designed an entire tax code around ways in which we can avoid paying taxes. So with a little bit of extra effort, you can really optimize your financial circumstance.
So since we know that being proactive, planning ahead, pays dividends, literally in tax savings, this is something that I think everybody thinks when you say tax time, they think April. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like when you say, baseball, big things happen in October, because that's when the World Series.
That's right.
That is not, I don't think you build a baseball team in the month of October, just like you shouldn't do a tax plan in the month of April. So what's a better tact with that, Bo?
Yeah, we actually think that tax planning is not something that happens on April 15th. It's actually not something that happens April 1st. Tax planning is something that should be going all year long, because if you take proactive steps at the beginning of the year, throughout the year, at the end of the year, and then even up to tax time, you're going to set yourself up for so much success and no surprises when it comes time to file your annual taxes.
So let's jump into a few of these. Like the first thing, I think like 401k, retirement savings things, because these are big savings opportunities. It's easier if you smooth this stuff
Absolutely.
out. Now, we will have people that will say, what if I have the capability of funding my 401k in the first 3 months of the year?
And they'll even tell us, guys, I've thought about this a lot. Mathematically, that makes a lot more sense, because the longer that I can leave my money invested, the longer that it can compound. So I want to put my money in January, February, March, and get the full salary deferral maxed out. And that sounds like a great idea in theory. However, one thing you really need to be careful of is, does your 401k or your employer-sponsored plan have an employer match true-up?
Yep.
A lot of the plans say that if you are not contributing every pay cycle, you can actually miss out on and lose that employer match. A real big example of this that we see all the time is the government TSP, Thrift Savings Plan.
Yep. So that's what, look, I get it. Money in the market, 8 out of 10 years, you make money investing. So if you just look at that 80% statistic, it's actually better to put more of your money to work sooner. What I'm worried about is the catch, that little asterisk in the footnote where your employer says, yeah, it's great that you pre-funded your retirement, but because of that true-up provision, we're not going to give you match contribution.
Right.
We know match is free money. Yep. Make sure you go do your research. If you are going to load it up to take advantage of getting the money in there sooner, pay attention. Maybe smoothing your 401k contributions could be a good thing. And then I put in there, or we talked about in the pre-show planning, dollar cost averaging contributions both in your HSA and then even looking at your IRA contributions. There's some benefits and things you ought to look at on this. Look, both of these things are good things. And the fact that we love HSAs because they're triple tax advantage. You get a tax deduction when you put the money in. They grow tax deferred. And if you use them for medical purposes, it's completely tax free. That is some powerful, powerful stuff. There's even bonus level material if you let the assets stay invested and grow. Not going to cover that right now because we're focusing on dollar cost averaging. And then we like IRA, especially like Roth contributions, because tax-free growth is so powerful. I promise you, your 40, your 50, your 60-year-old self will want to give you a wet, sloppy kiss if you have actually done all these things consistently. And what I like about dollar cost averaging, not only does it smooth out volatility of the financial markets, it also makes it much more digestible on your monthly cash flow.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I have a conversation with a friend or a peer, and I'll tell them, it'll be tax time. They say, hey, I'm trying to, I'm doing my taxes. I'm like, oh, well, tell me about your health insurance, and we'll determine they have a high deductible plan. And I'll say, oh, that's so exciting. You know, this year you can do a $7,000 health savings account contribution, and that's going to be a frontline deduction on your tax return. They're like, awesome.
I don't have $7,000.
Where do I come up with $7,000?
So it is much easier from a cash flow perspective to make these things bite-sized.
That's exactly right.
So it's easier. Now, I do want to throw one caveat in there. We love Roth contributions, but even right before we hit record, there was a listener who reached out to us, and I was looking at comments. They were contributing to their Roth. All of a sudden, they find out their income is much higher than anticipated. They got some bonus income. Now they are outside. So you do need to be careful. If you make too much money, like in Roth accounts, you might have to recharacterize, which is not the easiest process, to get the money out of Roth and put it back into traditional form.
Yep.
It's a little scary. So pay attention to what's going on with your income and kind of give a best guess estimate so you don't get yourself in a bad pickle.
Yeah, logistically, what they say is if you are putting money into your Roth monthly and it's termed out that you're ineligible, not only do they make you pull out those contributions, you also have to pull out the earnings attributable to those, and that would be taxable to you and likely subject to a penalty. So if you're someone in that threshold, whether you're a single individual or a married individual, and you're within, I don't know, $10,000, $15,000 of that threshold, it may be prudent to build those contributions in an outside account and fund them once a year once you know for sure where your eligibility lies.
So pay attention to that. It's very important stuff. And I want to close out the tax planning segment, hitting the big three. Kind of a quick overview. You know, so the big three if you want to talk about tax planning, we like to talk about retirement contributions.
And I would say that's the big one, right? That is the number one.
Low-lying fruit, for sure.
It is the number one. Oh my God, how do you say it? The number one best way to legally hide money from the government.
Yeah, I mean, because it's good societally if you're saving for the future, so they encourage that behavior. So make sure you're maxing out the employer plans, the self-employed plans, your own individual Roth IRAs. All those savings opportunities will pay off many, many years in the future. And then also look at the timing of your income and deductions. Always remember you want to try to defer income, accelerate expenses, because this is going to allow you to take advantage of being very proactive with how you do your tax planning.
You know, I have a lot of folks all the time. They're like, "Hey, give me a tax tip. Tell me a little thing." And they always ask us at the end of the year because people always want their tax tips either on April 14th or December 31st. And I was like, "Okay, well, are you someone who's charitably minded?" And they're like, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, tell me about that." "Oh, I give money to my church on the 1st of every month." That's awesome. One thing you could do is instead of writing your check on January 1st, write it on December 31st. Get that deduction into this year.
Yep.
Little things like that, accelerating expenses or postponing income are great ways to tweak your tax bill.
And that's actually a great segue into the third biggest low-lying fruit is just charitable contributions. People ask me, what's a great way? And I know it's boring, but charity is one of the easier ways to get it. It is a little harder. I will fully to share because now that the standard deduction has gotten so high. So that's when you look at things like qualified charitable distributions and other planning opportunities. We cover that in an upcoming show that's coming out. But I did want to throw one more honorable mention because, Bo, I have the exact same thing. When I was doing taxes for close to 20 years, people would say, how can I lower my taxes? And after we talk about these big three, which is the retirement contributions, the timing, the rest is just no deduction or credit should be left behind because this is the obscure stuff that everybody always overlooks. And it's typically things like your local taxes. If you've got some obscure local tax that local government's charging, it's more than likely deductible. You just need to make sure you tell your tax preparer or take advantage of it yourself. Tax credits. These things slip through the crack all the time. And the fact that like child tax credits now are much, much higher than they used to be from an income perspective. It used to be cut out at around $100,000. Now it's over $400,000. So it's one of those things. Make sure you're getting credit for all the Rugrats. Make sure you're getting credits for all their education expenses because you do. You get education credits. And then if you're making obscure purchases like an electric car, there still are some tax credits. No credit, no deduction should be left behind. Follow the same type of mantra that our military is doing.
I think what's so funny is you used to tell me, Brian, one of the ways when you were a tax preparer 100 years ago and you used to do tax prep, you would always tell your clients or you'd always try to find this win that okay, yeah, you're paying me a fee and it's going to be a couple $100s or whatever. My goal is to find a couple $100s of credits or deductions or things that you missed to help justify the fee. That's a great plug for maybe seeking out professional tax guidance if you're someone who has potentially a more complicated tax situation.
Yeah, and even if they can't save you money this year, maybe they can give you some tax planning strategies that can help you in future years that will also help offset
Exactly
their
right.
fee.